Lily grew up in a place most people only pass through. A small, dusty town in Kansas with a single gas station and a diner that closed before dark. Her home was a worn-out trailer on the edge of town, where leaky ceilings were normal and dinner often depended on her mom's tips. Her dad, once a skilled mechanic, hadn't found steady work in years. Still, Lily's head was full of ideas, not fantasies but plans. She didn't just want to escape. She wanted to build something that mattered. From a young age, she would sketch out inventions on napkins and read every book the public library allowed her to check out. While her classmates dreamed of college football games or escaping to the city, Lily dreamed of launching a business, something real, something hers. But anytime she spoke about it, the reactions were always the same. Puzzled looks, soft laughs, and dismissive comments. "That's not for girls like you," one teacher had told her. "Focus on something safe." Those words stuck with her longer than she'd admit. In a town where dreams were seen as distractions, Lily learned to keep hers quiet. She got used to being the odd one out, the girl who asked too many questions, who stayed behind after class to use the school computer, who refused to believe that her zip code defined her future. She wasn't chasing fame or fortune. What she wanted was freedom to create, to choose, to lead. At night, when the trailer was silent, Lily would stare at the ceiling and whisper her ideas like prayers. She imagined apps, services, things that solved real problems for people like her family, working-class folks with big burdens and little help. No one around her was building anything, but deep down, she believed she could. Not because someone told her she could, but because something inside her never stopped saying she must. Lily had pinned all her hopes on one thing: a scholarship. She had worked hard for years. Top grades, part-time jobs, endless nights with her face buried in books. But when the letter finally came, it wasn't the one she'd imagined. The envelope was thin, and the answer was no. No scholarship, no financial aid. The cost of college without it? Completely out of reach. She tried to act strong in front of her friends, but the disappointment ran deep. One afternoon at the local diner, she told them she still planned to chase her idea, a budgeting app for low-income families. But instead of support, she was met with smirks. "An app? You don't even own a real laptop," one friend said. Another added, "Come on, Lily, just get a job like the rest of us. Be realistic." Those words stayed with her, heavier than she expected. Not just because they hurt, but because they came from people who had grown up like her. Same town, same struggles. If even they couldn't believe in her, who would? For a moment, doubt started to creep in. Maybe they were right. Maybe dreaming was just another way to get disappointed. But that night, something shifted. Sitting alone in her bedroom, Lily stared at the scholarship rejection letter and made a quiet decision. If no one would open a door for her, she'd build her own. Her dreams had always made others uncomfortable. Too bold, too different, too big. And now, their rejection didn't silence her. It sparked something deeper, a quiet fire, fueled not by approval, but by refusal. With no college path and no safety net, Lily took a job as a barista at a downtown coffee shop. The hours were long, the pay barely covered rent, but she kept her ears open and her eyes sharper than ever. Behind the counter, she heard pieces of strangers' lives, complaints about overdraft fees, missed payments, budgeting stress. It wasn't just one or two people. It was nearly everyone. She started noticing patterns. One man came in every morning with a designer watch but paid with coins. A young couple argued about credit cards while waiting for their lattes. Lily began scribbling notes during her breaks, jotting down the struggles she overheard. She wasn't judging them. She related to them. The way money controlled everything. The way no one seemed to understand how to handle it without stress or shame. One night after work, exhausted but restless, Lily sat at her tiny kitchen table with a notepad and a cheap pen. She drew simple columns: income, fixed expenses, flexible spending. She added color codes, boxes to track goals, a weekly review section. It was messy, but it made sense. She didn't know it yet, but she was designing the first version of her system. Not an app, not a business, just a better way to survive. There was no applause, no funding, just a girl with a coffee-stained apron and a brain that wouldn't stop working. Each day, she refined her system, testing it herself, adjusting it based on what she saw and heard at the cafe. She still couldn't afford a laptop, so everything stayed on paper. But the idea was real now. And for the first time in a while, so was her sense of purpose. Lily's system was working, not just for her, but for a few customers she quietly shared it with. But she knew paper wouldn't reach the world. She needed to build it into something real. That meant learning to code. With no money for classes, she searched for free tutorials online, watching hours of videos each night after work on an old, cracked laptop she bought secondhand for $40. Her apartment was tiny, a two-bedroom split between 3 girls. Lily didn't have a bed, only a blanket folded over a rug in the corner. She'd lie on the floor with headphones on, copying lines of code until her eyes burned. Every click of the keyboard felt like a step forward, even when the screen showed nothing but errors. She didn't have time or space for comfort, but she had a goal and it kept her going. Every evening, after wiping down espresso machines and sweeping cafe floors, she came home to build. Slowly, her budgeting system took shape on screen, drop-down menus, calculators, graphs. It was basic, but it worked. She tested it again and again, adjusting the code, fixing bugs with whatever information she could find. Sometimes, she'd fall asleep next to the laptop, fingers still resting on the keys. No mentors, no investors, no shortcuts, just quiet effort when no one was watching. Her roommates didn't really understand what she was doing. To them, she was just the quiet girl in the corner, always glued to a screen. But Lily didn't need them to understand. The app she was building wasn't just for users. It was for people like her. People who'd been left behind and needed a way back in. After months of late nights and quiet building, Lily finally felt ready to share her idea. She signed up for a 5-minute pitch at a small local startup event held in a community center gym. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like a step forward. She printed simple flyers, wore her best thrifted blazer, and brought along her beat-up laptop to show the prototype. Her heart was racing, but she believed in what she'd made. When her name was called, she stood in front of a small crowd of business people and local founders. She spoke clearly, explaining how her app helped people track spending, set goals, and understand their money without feeling overwhelmed. But as she glanced around the room, she noticed people whispering, looking at their phones, not even pretending to care. It wasn't nerves. It was something worse, dismissal. Afterward, she approached a well-known local investor, hoping for feedback. He barely glanced at her demo. "This is cute," he said with a smirk. "But no one's gonna pay for something like this. It's poor girl stuff." The words hit harder than she expected. Her throat tightened, but she nodded, thanked him, and left before anyone could see her cry. Outside, in the dark parking lot, she broke down. Not from failure, but from humiliation. But later that night, back in her corner of the apartment, Lily wiped her face, reopened her laptop, and got back to work. The rejection stung, but it also clarified something. She wasn't building this for them. She was building it for people like her, the ones who didn't get invited to the table. Maybe they didn't see the value yet, but one day they would. And that was enough to keep going. Lily had stopped checking the app's inbox. Most of the time it was spam or worse, silence. But one morning, after a long shift and little sleep, she noticed a message that looked different. It was from a woman named Rachel, a single mom from Ohio. "Your app saved my budget," it read. "I finally understand where my money's going. Thank you." Lily read the message twice, then a third time. Her hands were shaking. She sat there on the floor, staring at the screen. Rachel wasn't an investor, a tech influencer, or anyone trying to impress her. She was just someone struggling, like Lily, who found relief in what Lily had built. That simple thank you meant more than any startup event or business advice. It was the first real sign that what she was doing mattered to someone beyond herself. Rachel's words hit a place in Lily that had been waiting for a reason to keep going. She imagined the woman at her kitchen table, just trying to keep her kids fed, tracking her bills with Lily's color-coded charts. It was no longer about building a company. It was about building something useful, something kind. Something that made people feel less alone with their money. With no savings, no team, and still sleeping on the floor, Lily made a decision that night. She would keep going, not for profit, but for people like Rachel. She started posting small tips on social media, sharing screenshots of the app's features. She didn't have a strategy, just a story. And slowly, people began to listen. Not because it was flashy, but because it was honest. Lily never planned to go viral. One night, sitting cross-legged on the floor with her laptop propped up by a shoebox, she filmed a simple video. No fancy lights, no makeup, no script. Just her voice, gently explaining how she built the app after struggling to budget as a broke barista. She showed the screens, the graphs, and the weekly spending wheel. "I made this for people like me," she said at the end, who just needed a place to start. She uploaded it to TikTok with no expectations. Then she went to sleep. When she woke up, her phone was buzzing nonstop. The video had blown up. People were tagging friends, leaving comments like, "Where was this last year?" And finally, something that makes sense. In 48 hours, the app had crossed 100,000 downloads. She stared at the number, stunned. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. What hit Lily the hardest weren't the numbers. It was the messages. People sent videos of themselves using the app at kitchen tables and break rooms. Moms, college students, veterans. One woman wrote, "I cried the first time I saw my budget make sense." The comments were filled with gratitude, not for flashy tech, but for something real. Her story had touched people. Her struggle had helped others find hope in theirs. Lily didn't feel ready. The app was still rough. She was still poor. But now the world was watching and believing. She pulled the blankets tighter around her shoulders and opened her laptop. Her life hadn't changed overnight, but something had shifted. She wasn't just building an app anymore. She was building a movement. And this time she wasn't doing it alone. As the downloads grew, so did the pressure. Lily could no longer handle everything on her own. She needed help, but she didn't have the capital to hire big names or seasoned professionals. So, she turned to the people who had believed in her from the start, her users. Through social media posts, she set up a donation link, asking for just a little help to take her idea to the next level. To her surprise, the response was overwhelming. People were willing to give, not much, but enough to get started. With the small funds in hand, Lily reached out to other young people who, like her, had the drive but not the credentials. She found a freelance developer from Detroit, a graphic designer in Chicago, and a marketing student from Phoenix. None of them had prestigious resumes or high-powered connections. But what they did have was passion. They believed in the mission to make money management simple, functional, and accessible to everyone, especially those who felt ignored by traditional finance. The team worked remotely, meeting on Zoom calls late at night, exchanging ideas over email, and sharing feedback on Google Docs. There were mistakes, long nights, and moments of doubt, but they were driven by something stronger than the odds stacked against them. Purpose. Lily couldn't pay them much, but she offered equity and a shared vision. Everyone was in it together, building not just an app, but something that could change lives. Slowly, the app began to evolve. It remained simple, without the fancy bells and whistles of bigger finance apps, but it became more functional, more intuitive. It wasn't just about tracking spending anymore. It was about understanding where your money went, setting achievable goals, and building confidence. The team's commitment paid off, and the app started to feel less like a side project and more like a genuine solution. It wasn't polished, but it was real. 2 years after Lily launched her app, she was still working out of her small apartment, still relying on the team she had built from scratch. There had been struggles, moments when she wondered if it was all worth it, if anyone was really paying attention. But then, one quiet morning, an email popped up in her inbox. The subject line read, "Feature Request, Forbes magazine." Her hands froze as she opened it, barely believing what she was reading. The email was from a senior editor at Forbes. They wanted to feature her story in a special piece about entrepreneurs changing the game for working families. Lily stared at the screen, feeling her heart race. She had never dreamed that something like this could happen. Her app, which had started as a simple tool to help people like her, was now the #1 finance app for families struggling to make ends meet. She was no longer the girl working at a cafe. She was being recognized as an innovator. When the article finally went live, it hit the world hard. The Kansas girl who created the #1 finance app for working families was the headline. The piece not only highlighted the app's impact but also told Lily's personal story, from rejection and sleepless nights to building a community of users who saw the value in simplicity. It wasn't just about a product anymore. It was about resilience, about doing the impossible with nothing but heart and a vision. Lily became a symbol of what's possible when you refuse to give up. The phone calls started coming in, potential investors, new partnerships, media requests. But nothing compared to the moment she sat down, reading through the hundreds of messages from working moms, dads, students, and small business owners who had been helped by her app. They saw her as a symbol not of perfection, but of persistence. She hadn't built a tech empire. She had built a lifeline. And in that moment, Lily knew her journey had only just begun. Today, Lily's life looks nothing like it did when she was working behind the counter at that coffee shop. Her app is now one of the most downloaded finance tools in the country, and she's been featured in top publications. But the real triumph isn't in the success she's built. It's in what she's doing with that success. Lily has made it her mission to give back, investing a significant portion of her profits into financial literacy programs for underserved youth. "I was rejected, but I never stopped," she says. "Now, I want to open doors for those who come after me." One of her biggest projects is the Next Generation Financiers Initiative, which provides scholarships and mentorship for young people from low-income backgrounds. Lily knows firsthand how difficult it can be to break into the world of business and finance without the right support. That's why she partners with local schools and nonprofit organizations to bring financial education to communities that often feel overlooked. Her goal is simple: to ensure that no one else has to fight the way she did to find financial freedom. In her free time, Lily holds workshops, speaking directly to young women who dream of entrepreneurship but don't know where to start. She teaches them that failure doesn't define you, persistence does. Her story, once filled with rejection and struggle, is now a beacon of possibility for anyone who dares to dream big, regardless of where they come from. And as she continues to grow her business, her commitment to giving back remains at the heart of everything she does. Lily's journey is a reminder that success isn't just about what you achieve for yourself. It's about lifting others up along the way. "I didn't get here on my own," she says, "and I want to make sure that the next generation knows they don't have to either." With her mission now driving her forward, Lily proves that real success isn't just measured by the numbers. It's measured by how much you help others achieve their dreams. 2. If you found Lily's story inspiring, make sure to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Millionaire Breakthrough for more incredible stories of perseverance, success, and transformation. What's your own story of overcoming challenges? Let's talk about it. We'd love to hear from you.